If you've ever wondered whether she's secretly turned on by you, the truth is, her body is already telling you everything if you know how to read it. Most men go through life completely missing these signs. They talk to a woman, maybe even spend hours together, but walk away still asking themselves, does she actually want me, or am I imagining it? That uncertainty is frustrating, and it's even worse when you realize you might have missed your moment without even knowing it. Here's the thing, women aren't always going to come out and say, I'm into you. Often, they can't. Sometimes it's pride, sometimes it's fear of looking too forward, and sometimes they just want you to figure it out. But that doesn't mean they're hiding it completely. Their body language, tone of voice, and tiny subconscious actions can reveal more than words ever could. In this video, I'm going to break down 10 undeniable signs she's horny for you but won't admit it. And this isn't just surface-level dating advice, we're talking about cues so subtle you'll start noticing them even when she's trying her hardest to play it cool. Once you can read these signals, you'll know exactly when she's feeling that pull toward you, and trust me, it will completely change the way you interact with women. Let's get into it. Number 1. Her eyes carry the truth you can't ignore. They say the eyes are the windows to the soul, but when it comes to attraction, they're also the loudest secret a woman will never verbally admit. You can fake a smile, you can force a laugh, but you can't fake the way your eyes light up, dilate, and lock onto someone you're craving. Now here's the thing, when a woman is horny for you, but doesn't want to admit it, her eyes will betray her. You'll notice she holds your gaze just a second longer than necessary. She's not just looking at you, she's looking into you. That subtle, prolonged eye contact is her subconscious trying to connect on a deeper level without saying a word. Let me give you an example. Imagine Ethan, 29, grabbing a coffee with Jessica, 27. They've been friends for a while, and the conversation is casual work, weekend plans, the usual. But every time Ethan glances up from his cup, Jessica's eyes are already on him. And instead of looking away immediately, she lets her gaze linger, almost like she's undressing him with her mind. It's not the quick, polite glance you give a coworker. This is slower, heavier, loaded. And if you pay close attention, you might even catch the micro-expressions, pupils widening slightly, a tiny smirk forming at the corner of her mouth, a softness in her face that wasn't there when you first walked in. Those changes happen because her body is reacting to you on a primal level. Here's another tell, scanning. Sometimes, instead of holding direct eye contact, she'll let her eyes travel from your eyes, down to your lips, then maybe your chest or shoulders before darting back up. That's her mind running ahead of the conversation, imagining what it would be like to close the distance. Now, I know what some guys might think. What if she's just being friendly? Fair question. That's why context matters. Eye contact alone isn't a smoking gun, but when it's paired with other signs like a change in her tone of voice, slight fidgeting, or finding reasons to be close, it becomes part of a much bigger picture. And let's be real, in our culture, especially in the US, women are often more guarded with direct verbal flirtation. They'll use their eyes to test you, to see if you can pick up on the unspoken. If you can't, the moment passes and she'll file you under doesn't get it. This is where most men miss the mark. They notice the eye contact but either overthink it or ignore it. The key is to acknowledge it without becoming awkward. Meet her gaze, hold it for a moment, and give the smallest, most confident smile. You're letting her know, I see you, I get it. And if you're wondering how this fits into a Stoic mindset, remember what Epictetus said, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. In this case, replace ears with eyes. Your ability to observe without rushing in shows patience, control, and an awareness that most men lack. So next time you're talking to her, watch the eyes not in a creepy, unblinking way, but with presence. Because while her words might keep things casual, her gaze might be telling you the exact opposite. Before we move on, I want you to drop this in the comments. I notice everything. It's a small statement, but it says a lot about the kind of man who's tuned in and in control. And trust me, if you think her eyes are revealing, wait until you see the next sign. Number 2. Her voice becomes a whisper of desire. When words lose their volume, they often gain meaning. There's something about a woman lowering her voice that transforms the entire atmosphere between you. It's not just a change in sound, it's a shift in energy. Think about it. We naturally drop our voices when we're in a moment that feels intimate or private. It forces the other person to lean in, to close the space, to focus on every syllable. And when a woman is feeling that electric pull toward you but doesn't want to announce it outright, her voice will soften, slow down, and wrap itself around your attention like warm velvet. It might happen mid-conversation. One moment she's speaking at a normal tone, the next her voice dips, almost as if she's sharing a secret that's meant only for you. The edges of her words get rounder, her pace slows, and she elongates certain phrases. Whether she's asking what you're doing later or making an offhand remark, the delivery itself becomes the message. Why does this happen? Simple, her nervous system is shifting gears. When attraction is high, adrenaline and oxytocin play tug-of-war inside her body. Lowering her voice isn't just instinctive, it's strategic. It draws you in without her having to take any physical risk. It's a way of testing the waters, seeing if you'll meet her energy or let it pass. A key detail to notice is context. If you're surrounded by other people and she suddenly lowers her voice only when speaking to you, that's not coincidence. That's her creating a private world in a public space. And if she leans slightly closer as she does it, the combination of proximity and tone becomes magnetic. Here's where Stoicism offers an unexpected insight. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." In moments like this, her words might be innocent, but the color of her tone, the softness, the depth is what reveals the truth. You're not just listening to what she says, you're listening to the emotional state behind it. Of course, there's a trap many men fall into here: overanalyzing. They hear a softer tone and immediately assume it's intentional seduction. That's when they push too hard, break the flow, and turn a spark into smoke. The disciplined man notices, appreciates, and mirrors without overplaying his hand. You don't lunge forward, you match the pace. You respond with your own subtle lowering of tone, and you allow the tension to build. This restraint is powerful. When you don't rush to cash in on the moment, you're telling her something profound, that you're not desperate, that you can handle desire without being controlled by it. And ironically, that control makes you more desirable. Think about the last time you spoke with someone whose voice was so captivating that you forgot half the words they said. That's the effect she's aiming for without even knowing it, to get you caught up in the feeling rather than the content. And if you're perceptive enough, you'll realize it's an invitation to read between the lines. The real mastery here is to respond without breaking the unspoken code. Maybe you lean in slightly. Maybe you answer in a tone that mirrors hers, slow and measured. You create that shared bubble of energy, and in that bubble, she feels safe to let her guard down just a little more. Before we move to the next sign, I want you to type this in the comments. I hear more than words. It's a short sentence, but it says you're the kind of man who doesn't just listen, you understand. And trust me, if her voice can draw you in this much, wait until you see what her body language will do next. Number 3. Her personal space disappears. Most of us grow up learning this invisible rule. Everyone has a bubble, a personal space, and crossing into it means you're either very close or you're testing boundaries. Now, when a woman is physically and emotionally drawn to you, that bubble doesn't just shrink, sometimes it completely disappears. Picture this: you're at a friend's small gathering, music playing softly in the background, people chatting in little groups. You're leaning against the kitchen counter, talking with a couple of friends, when you feel someone step into your space, not just next to you, but close enough that you can feel the warmth radiating from her arm. That's not random. That's not because there wasn't anywhere else to stand. That's an intentional breach of her usual comfort zone. Here's the thing. Women are acutely aware of proximity. For most of them, getting within arm's reach of someone, especially a man without needing to, is a deliberate choice. When she's into you, she'll erase that polite distance in subtle ways. She might stand shoulder to shoulder, brush past you in a way that lingers just a fraction too long, or lean in while talking, even if the room isn't noisy. Let's make it more real. Think about a guy like Ryan, 28, who works in marketing. He's chatting with a co-worker at a company happy hour when Emily, 26, comes over to join the conversation. The space between Ryan and Emily gets smaller and smaller until they're almost hip to hip. She's not touching him constantly, but every time someone moves in the group, she readjusts to stay right next to him. Ryan notices she could easily step back or shift away, but she doesn't. That's the sign. From a psychological angle, this is tied to comfort and desire. When someone feels a magnetic pull toward you, they subconsciously want to inhabit your space. It's not just about the body, it's about creating a little two-person world that no one else is invited into. But there's an even deeper layer. Sometimes this space invasion is also a test. She's watching how you react when she closes the gap. Do you tense up? Do you step back? Do you match her closeness? A confident man won't overreact. He'll hold his ground naturally, signaling that her presence there feels right. The Stoics might frame this differently. Epictetus said, "It is not things that upset us, but our judgments about things." In moments like these, your interpretation determines the outcome. You could think, "She's just standing here, no big deal," and miss the cue entirely. Or you could read it as the quiet invitation it is, and respond in a way that deepens the connection without jumping ahead or making it awkward. The key is to mirror without smothering. If she steps in close, you can subtly orient your body toward hers or lower your voice so that the closeness feels necessary. You don't need to initiate physical contact. The proximity itself becomes its own form of touch. In some cases, this closeness will escalate gradually over the course of a conversation. You start a few feet apart, then by the end, you're almost brushing shoulders every few seconds. That's when you know her comfort zone has been replaced by your presence. It's important to note, women rarely do this with men they're indifferent to. If she's choosing to erase the space between you, she's making a statement even if she'd never admit it out loud. By paying attention to these small shifts, you start to notice attraction long before the words, "I like you," ever come into play. And the man who notices, but doesn't rush, becomes infinitely more intriguing. Hold your ground, stay calm, and let her closeness speak for itself, because it's saying more than you might realize. Number 4, her hands speak volumes. You can learn a lot about someone without a single word being spoken, and when it comes to women, their hands often tell the story long before their lips ever do. The way she moves them, where she places them, and the rhythm of her gestures form a silent language of attraction that most men completely overlook. When she's drawn to you, her hands stop functioning in purely practical ways. They become expressive, revealing emotions she may not be ready to say out loud. Sometimes it's subtle fidgeting, not the anxious, uncomfortable kind, but slow, deliberate movements. She might trace her finger along the rim of her glass, twist a strand of hair, or run her fingertips along the table while you're talking. These aren't necessary actions. They're energy being redirected from her thoughts into her hands because she's feeling something. Other times, her hands open up. She might use them more when she talks, her palms occasionally facing you, signaling openness. She might rest them close to yours, let them brush your arm, or even adjust something on your shirt. Then there's self-touch, running a hand down her neck, adjusting her necklace, smoothing her dress. Psychologists call these auto-contact behaviors, and they often spike when a woman feels heightened awareness in a man's presence. It's partly a self-soothing action, but also a subconscious way of drawing your attention to her body. From a Stoic perspective, Marcus Aurelius once said, "Observe what is before you." The lesson here is not to overanalyze every flick of her finger, but to notice patterns. One isolated gesture might mean nothing, but when you see the same actions happening consistently around you, that's when you should pay attention. One of the clearest tells is mirroring. If you place your hand a certain way, and moments later she does something similar without realizing it, that's unconscious alignment. That's connection. Our hands are tied directly to our nervous system. When someone's calm and indifferent, their hands stay grounded and still. But when there's excitement, attraction, or anticipation, the hands become more active. It's an outlet for that energy. Sometimes she'll even use her hands to test you, brushing lint off your shoulder, letting her fingers linger when she hands you something, or touching your forearm while laughing. These aren't accidents. She's gauging your reaction. The mistake most men make is either overreacting or completely ignoring it. The right move is subtle acknowledgement. If she touches your arm, meet her eyes for a moment. If her hand is close to yours, let it stay there and share that space without rushing. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." In this case, don't imagine her touch means too much or too little. Stay grounded, read the signals, and let her comfort with touch build naturally. Her hands can be shy, bold, playful, or deliberate, but they rarely lie. If you know how to read them, you'll see her attraction growing before a single word about it is spoken. If you've ever spotted this sign in a woman and knew exactly what it meant, drop this in the comments. I notice everything, and pay attention, because what comes next isn't just another subtle sign. It's something that not only reveals her interest, but can flip the power dynamic entirely in your favor. Number 5. Her breath reflects the chemistry between you. You might think attraction is all about eye contact, touch, or words, but sometimes it's something far more primal. Her breath can tell you almost everything you need to know about the chemistry between you. It's not just about whether she's breathing heavily. It's about how her breathing changes when you're near, how it syncs or fails to sync with yours, and the subtle ways it reveals her excitement. Picture this. Jake, 29, is sitting across from Emily, 27, at a quiet wine bar. They've been friends for a while, but tonight there's a different energy between them. As Jake leans in to say something, Emily laughs, and her breath hitches just for a moment. She inhales quickly, then exhales slower, almost like she's savoring the moment. Jake notices. That tiny shift tells him there's tension here, the kind that isn't just friendly. Physiologically, when a woman is attracted to someone, her breathing often changes. It might become shallower and quicker during moments of excitement, or slower and deeper when she's feeling connected and comfortable. Sometimes her breathing will actually mirror yours without her realizing it. This mirroring is a subconscious bonding mechanism. It's her body's way of aligning with yours. You might also notice a sudden pause in her breath right after something you say or do. It's like her body momentarily freezes, not from discomfort, but from anticipation. This is often paired with other cues: slightly parted lips, dilated pupils, a subtle lean closer. All these signals together paint a much clearer picture than any single gesture on its own. From a Stoic perspective, Epictetus said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." Apply that here not just to words, but to listening with your senses. Pay attention to her breathing patterns, because they often speak louder than her voice. This isn't about staring at her chest to count breaths that would be creepy. It's about noticing shifts in her rhythm when the moment changes. Sometimes, breath becomes part of the interaction itself. If you're close enough to feel it, say, leaning in at a concert to talk over the music, you might notice hers becoming warmer, quicker or more intentional. The space between you shrinks, and suddenly the air feels charged. That's chemistry in its rawest form. Jake didn't push the moment with Emily. Instead, he matched her pace, slowing his own breathing, speaking softer, creating a shared rhythm that built the tension naturally. By the end of the night, their breaths were in sync without either of them thinking about it. That's the magic of awareness. You can turn something as simple as breathing into a subtle, powerful connection. Of course, not every change in breath means she's into you. Context matters. Maybe she just walked up the stairs or is feeling nervous for unrelated reasons. That's why you should never rely on a single cue. But when changes in her breathing happen in response to you, your presence, your words, your touch, that's when you know it's part of the attraction. So, the next time you're with her, be observant. If her breath speeds up when you lean in, if she holds it for a moment after you say something teasing, or if she unconsciously mirrors your breathing, that's not just coincidence, that's connection. If you've ever caught this sign and knew exactly what it meant, let me know in the comments with, "I feel the spark." And don't go anywhere, because what's coming next will show you a sign that's even harder for her to hide, one that can slip past most men, but completely changes the game when you see it. Number 6. Subtle touches that speak volumes. Sometimes, attraction doesn't announce itself with grand gestures. It slips in quietly, almost invisibly, through the smallest, most fleeting touches. These are the kinds of touches that happen so quickly, so casually, that you might question whether they even meant anything. But here's the truth. When a woman is feeling drawn to you, her body often finds ways to bridge the physical gap without her having to say a single word. It might be the way her hand briefly grazes your forearm while she's making a point, the light brush of her knee against yours under the table, or her fingertips resting for just a second too long when she hands you something. These moments might seem insignificant in isolation, but they can carry more weight than hours of conversation. Touch is a primal language. It bypasses logic and speaks directly to emotion. A Stoic might remind you of Marcus Aurelius's words, "Observe how ephemeral and worthless human things are." In this context, it's not about dismissing the value of touch, but about understanding its subtlety. These little gestures are fleeting. They happen in the moment and vanish. If you're too distracted or overthinking, you'll miss them entirely. The key is presence. Notice the touch, but don't overreact. Recognize the signal, but stay composed. That composure is what keeps you in control of the dynamic. The psychology here is fascinating. Light, seemingly accidental touches can activate oxytocin, the bonding hormone in both of you. It's her way of testing the waters without risking outright rejection. If you respond positively, but not desperately, maybe by maintaining eye contact, smiling subtly, or returning a light touch later, it deepens the connection without breaking the unspoken tension. One important detail: the location of the touch matters. A quick tap on the shoulder isn't the same as her fingers grazing your lower back as she passes by. The more intimate the area within reason, the more telling the gesture. And context plays a huge role. In a crowded place, a touch might just be practicality, but if you're in a setting where space isn't an issue, yet she still finds a reason to make contact, that's intentional. Here's the paradox most men don't realize when these touches happen. Your job isn't to pounce on the opportunity, it's to acknowledge it internally, stay calm, and let the moment breathe. If you try to force the pace, you strip away the very tension that makes these gestures so powerful. The most magnetic interactions are built on restraint, not instant gratification. Think of it like a musician leaving just enough space between notes. The silence makes the next sound hit harder. The absence of a reaction can make her want to touch you again, just to see if you'll respond differently. That's the beauty of this dance. You're letting her curiosity work for you. Now here's the kicker. If she keeps finding excuses to touch you, Even in situations where it's completely unnecessary, that's no longer subtle, it's deliberate. At that point, she's telling you exactly where her mind is, even if her words never go there. So the next time you feel that light brush of her hand or the warmth of her fingers against your arm, don't dismiss it as nothing. Those moments are her way of saying more than she's willing to put into words. If you've ever noticed this and felt that electric shift in the air, drop it in the comments with, "I can feel it," and stay right here. Because the next sign I'm about to reveal is even more dangerous in the best way possible. It's the kind that can make your pulse race before you even realize what's happening. Number 7. The lip language of desire. Sometimes, the most telling signals aren't in her words, they're in the way she uses her lips. Women often express attraction through micro-expressions and small, deliberate actions with their mouths, and most men completely miss them. It could be a slow bite of her lower lip while holding your gaze, the subtle trace of her tongue across her lips, or even the way she pauses mid-conversation to moisten them. These gestures might seem unconscious, but they often carry a clear subtext. She's thinking about something more than the words being exchanged. Take Jake, 29, for example. He was sitting across from a co-worker at a casual after-work drink. As they laughed over a story, he noticed she gently ran her tongue along the corner of her mouth while maintaining eye contact. He didn't jump in with an overt move, he simply leaned in slightly, lowering his voice, and kept the tension alive. Later, she admitted she had been testing him to see if he'd pick up on her signals without getting flustered. The beauty of lip language is that it blends sensuality with plausible deniability. In other words, she can signal interest while maintaining the appearance of innocence. For example, Melissa, 26, was out on a coffee date with a guy she'd been texting for weeks. She played with the rim of her coffee cup, then bit her lip lightly while glancing at him. He noticed, smiled subtly, and carried on the conversation with an even calmer presence. That little display didn't need a verbal acknowledgement. His awareness and confidence spoke louder. From a psychological standpoint, these lip movements draw your attention to one of the most intimate and expressive parts of the body. Humans are wired to notice mouths. It's part of our primal programming. Add in the fact that these gestures often mimic behaviors associated with intimacy, and the effect can be magnetic. The Stoics might phrase it like this: the body speaks its own truth, even when the tongue stays silent. In this case, her lips become a quiet messenger of her desire. But here's where most guys mess up. They either miss the sign completely or react too obviously. If you stare at her mouth like you've just discovered it exists, you break the natural flow and risk making things awkward. The right move is subtle acknowledgement, maybe a faint smile, a steady gaze, or a slight lean forward. You let her know you've noticed without making it the center of the conversation. This maintains the tension and invites her to keep expressing herself. Also, pay attention to timing. If her lip gestures happen right after you say something flirtatious, or when the conversation dips into more personal territory, they're more likely to be intentional. If they occur repeatedly throughout the interaction, it's not just a nervous habit, it's a signal. And remember, this lip language often pairs with other signs like her body leaning closer, her voice lowering, or her breathing changing. Spotting these combinations is where you go from guessing to knowing. If you've ever caught this kind of signal and felt that unspoken pull, drop it in the comments with, "I see the sign." And stay tuned, because the next signal is even more magnetic. It's one she can't fake, no matter how hard she tries. It's the kind of thing that can completely change the way you read her body language. Number 8. Fidgeting as a signal of nervous attraction. There's a certain kind of energy that fills the air when someone's attracted to you but trying to keep it under wraps. You can feel it before you even put it into words. One of the clearest physical giveaways: fidgeting. It's the way she plays with her hair a little too much, adjusts her necklace without it needing adjusting, taps her fingers on her glass, or shifts in her seat even when she's perfectly comfortable. On the surface, it can seem random, like she's just restless, but under the lens of human behavior, it's often a quiet flare signaling that she's affected by your presence. The thing about fidgeting is that it's an involuntary response to heightened emotional or physiological arousal. When a woman is attracted to you, her body might not stay still because her mind is processing multiple things at once: excitement, curiosity, a touch of anxiety, and a desire to make a good impression. This is why you'll often notice her toying with objects near her, stirring her drink when it's already mixed, folding and unfolding a napkin, or touching her own wrist or forearm without reason. From a Stoic perspective, Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." In this context, her small movements are a visible color of what's happening internally. She might be trying to stay composed, but her body is leaking the truth. It's also worth noting that fidgeting has an element of self-soothing. Just like how someone might cross their arms or rub their hands together when they're cold, fidgeting in the presence of attraction is her way of balancing out the adrenaline rush. And while you might think, "She's nervous, maybe she's not into me," the opposite is often true. If she were indifferent, she'd likely be calm, relaxed, and her movements would be minimal. The mistake many men make is calling attention to the fidgeting in a literal way, "Why are you so nervous?" which can instantly make her self-conscious and break the flow. The better approach is to simply observe and match her energy in a grounded way. When you remain calm, measured, and steady in your body language, it creates a contrast that can actually amplify her attraction. Another thing to look for is when fidgeting escalates in sync with moments of connection, like after a shared laugh, a subtle compliment, or a longer than usual eye contact. Those aren't random coincidences, they're micro expressions of excitement. In some cases, she may channel her fidgeting into something more sensual, slowly tracing the rim of her glass, adjusting her hair so it falls a certain way, or sliding a bracelet up and down her wrist. These are subtle blends of nervous energy and flirtation, where the accident of movement draws your eyes to certain parts of her. The beauty of noticing fidgeting is that it gives you an edge in reading the room without her ever having to confess her feelings. You're playing at a deeper level, one where the conversation is happening both in words and in unspoken signals. If you've spotted this kind of nervous attraction before and it changed how you handled the interaction, drop a comment with, "I read the signs." And trust me, the next signal we're diving into is one she can't hide, even if she wanted to. It's written all over her when the tension peaks. Number 9. Blushing and the red tint confession. There's something almost primal about blushing. It's one of the few reactions we can't fake. When a woman's cheeks flush in your presence, it's her body betraying her in the most honest way possible. You can't talk your way into it, and she can't think her way out of it. It's the silent confession that her emotions have spiked, whether from attraction, embarrassment, or a mix of both. Let's picture this in real life. Daniel, 29, is sitting at a coffee shop across from Emily, 27. They've been friends for a while, but lately he's been noticing small shifts in her behavior. Today, while joking about an inside story only they share, he catches it: the sudden warmth in her cheeks, the way her eyes dart down for a second, and that nervous smile she can't quite suppress. The thing is, Emily's not embarrassed by the story. She's reacting to him. And that pink tint across her face is more revealing than anything she's said all day. Physiologically, blushing is caused by a rush of blood to the capillaries under the skin, triggered by the sympathetic nervous system. But in the context of attraction, it's more than biology, it's vulnerability made visible. She's literally wearing her feelings on her face, and she knows you can see it. That's why blushing often comes with other small giveaways: biting her lip, a soft laugh, or looking away to compose herself. From a Stoic perspective, Epictetus said, "If you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." Blushing, in a way, is her acceptance of that momentary loss of composure. She's allowing her body to speak even when her words are guarded. It's an unplanned surrender, and it's beautiful precisely because it's uncalculated. The context matters here. If she blushes when you give her a sincere compliment, that's a direct acknowledgement of the impact your words have on her. If it happens during playful teasing, it's often a mix of excitement and the thrill of being slightly caught off guard. And in more intimate settings, that red tint can signal that her mind is wandering exactly where you think it is. Now, the danger is in mishandling the moment. If you call it out in a clumsy way, "Wow, you're really blushing," you risk pushing her into self-defense mode. But if you acknowledge it with subtlety, maybe by holding eye contact a fraction longer or offering a knowing smile, you amplify the tension instead of diffusing it. Daniel knew this with Emily. He didn't say a word about her blush. He just leaned back, kept his voice calm, and let the air between them thicken. That small choice made her feel even more seen and kept the spark alive. Blushing is a moment you can't force, but you can create the conditions for it. Playful banter, genuine compliments, shared secrets, and holding eye contact just long enough to make her feel like you see more than she's saying. And when it happens, you don't need to overplay it. Let her feel it, sit with it, and let it speak for itself. If you've ever caught that red tint confession and knew exactly what it meant, drop it in the comments with, "I saw the truth." And the next sign we're about to unpack takes things beyond what the eyes can see, straight into the kind of tension you can feel in your bones. Number 10. Genuine laughter that transcends humor. There's a kind of laughter that's different from the polite chuckles people give to keep a conversation flowing. This is the kind that bubbles up from deep inside, the one she can't stop even if she tries, the one that leaves her a little breathless. When a woman laughs like that around you, it's not just because what you said was funny, it's because of who said it. Her laughter isn't purely about humor. It's about the connection, the comfort, and the emotional release she feels in your presence. In many ways, this type of laughter is a sign of surrender. It means she's dropped the social mask and let you in past the point of casual interaction. It's raw, unfiltered joy, something that can't be forced or faked. And in the language of attraction, that's incredibly revealing. Genuine laughter is a mirror to trust, intimacy, and often a deep undercurrent of desire. Think about it. She could hear the exact same joke from someone else and maybe just smirk. But when you say it, paired with the timing, the eye contact, and the chemistry between you, it lands differently. She laughs harder because it's tied to how you make her feel, not just what you make her hear. This is why Stoic philosophy reminds us, as Marcus Aurelius said, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. If her laughter is richer and freer around you, it's because you've colored her thoughts in a way that lights her up. She associates you with that spark, and that emotional association is far more powerful than any pickup line. Let's put this into a real-life picture. Jack, 31, and Natalie, 28, are sitting in the park on a lazy Sunday afternoon. The conversation drifts from serious topics to ridiculous hypotheticals. Jack makes an offhand, slightly absurd comment, not even a punchline, and Natalie bursts into uncontrollable laughter. She leans into him, covering her mouth, eyes shining, trying to calm down. The thing is, Jack's comment wasn't objectively hilarious, but the way he said it, the fact that they were already locked in a comfortable bubble together, turned that moment into something that felt uniquely theirs. When a woman laughs like this, she's not just reacting, she's bonding. That laughter becomes a bridge, carrying her deeper into emotional closeness without either of you needing to acknowledge it outright. It's a shared emotional fingerprint, something that makes the connection feel exclusive. But here's the key. You don't get this kind of laughter by trying too hard to be funny. In fact, forcing jokes or fishing for reactions usually has the opposite effect. It keeps things on the surface. Instead, it comes from being present, listening closely, and letting your own personality shine through in the moment. Humor that transcends humor isn't about performance, it's about resonance. Once you recognize it, you'll see the difference instantly. A polite laugh is transactional, genuine laughter is magnetic, and when she's giving you that kind of reaction, she's telling you without saying a word that she feels safe enough to let go, to be herself, and to share that unguarded joy with you. If you've experienced that kind of moment where her laughter wasn't just about the joke but about the connection, drop it in the comments with, "I felt the spark." If this video sparked something in you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. That way, you never miss the mindset shifts that can quietly change everything. Inside, we don't chase. We lead, and we grow together. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.